I came here for you.
Yeah, Nick, you came here out of the blue, from outer space, with a sad story and hoping I was all alone and free, didn't you? Oh no, Nick. Not I. I found me a new love with someone who respects me. With her, I got a new life to live, to start anew. Because I deserve to live a new life, Nick. I was born to be alive.
Judy, please.
Do yourself a favor and get out of my life. Forever. Goodbye, Nick.
Judy, are you alright?
I'm better now. Much better.
Okay, let's lock in. It's getting serious. We have a time skip here. The last time Nick and Judy saw each other was at very least months ago. The comic starts out with Nick banging at the door, and here's our first detail. Judy's apartment number is 4U, which starts this theme of Nick thinking that Judy is for him and him alone. But another thing we need to notice here are the locks. There's a lot more compared to Judy and Nick's apartment from earlier. This is symbolism, baby. This is what I'm talking about right here. Woo!
Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about.
Since their last interaction, Judy has locked her heart up. She's shutting him out as he comes clawing back, thinking that he can win her back still. Let's take it a step forward here too, as we see Nick pleading with Judy to be let in. This is a very in-your-face juxtaposition to the ending of part 1, where Judy is begging Nick not to leave. Nick starts pulling his skeezy little tricks on Judy, acting like he's gonna die and trying to manipulate her into opening the door. Once inside, he starts acting nonchalant as fuck, just acting like nothing happened a second ago. Judy calls his ass out for being an alcoholic, but she says one important thing here. She asks if the alcohol is what made him come back. This definitely has not been the first time he showed back up to Judy since the first comic, but this time I guess he made it in the door because he just seems giddy as fuck to be there. One of the researchers in this video put down a note that says, quote, happier than a pig in shit. But anyway, Nick just plays everything off as fine, which shows he hasn't changed one bit. He just flips his mood and falls back onto his knees, sobbing and crying for Judy to take him back, promising change. And I don't think that's gonna happen. So let's talk comic details. What can we see in the art here? In part 1, there were subtle hints to the religious aspect of the pro-life rhetoric, but in part 2, it's a lot more in your face. So in the background of part 1, the details in the background tell a story of its own, and we get to see exactly how this universe parallels to our own. The details of the background show us religious art that's very similar to ours as humans. It doesn't take a high school English class to analyze what it means. We see things such as a crucified bunny statuette and a painting of Mother Mary and baby bunny Jesus that's shown twice. But we don't see it in part 2. Why? Because at some point, Judy has replaced the religious imagery in her house, this being after her and Nick broke up. Judy comes from a religious family, as evidenced by her family being Catholics, a play on Catholics, which is known to be a more conservative branch of Christianity. So basically, Judy grew up Catholic.
You know who else was Catholic? JFK.
Brainworm, what does that have to do with anything?
Wouldn't you like to know?
Please just shut up. So anyway, Judy's religious guilt is manifested for us to see visually in this story. While, yes, it's shown subtly through the background art, we get a pretty direct reference when Judy is talking about what her family would think of her abortion. In this panel, while Judy talks about her religious family, we are shown Judy naked in the middle of the frame, curled into herself in a fetal position, as those who have judged her surround her as silhouettes in the background, Nick and her parents. Not only is she just curled up into a fetal position, but I believe that this may be a direct reference to the return of the body, metaphor commonly found in Christianity. In Christian theology, the return of the body is understood metaphorically and literally depending on how you grew up, where you grew up, what version of the Bible you use, etc. The return of the body is understood metaphorically and literally. For almost everybody, the return of the body has different meanings. In this comic, though, my personal interpretation of this panel comes from a more hopeful and loving interpretation of God found in the New Testament, and through the teachings of Jesus. I think that this was done on purpose. I think that Borba wanted to take a metaphorical approach to this panel, as opposed to the Catholics' literal interpretation of the return of the body. So what does that even mean in this case? So basically, in 1 Corinthians chapter 15 verses 13 through 18, the Apostle Paul says, "If the dead are not yet raised, then Christ has not been raised. If Christ has not been raised, your faith is futile. and you are still in your sins, then those who have also fallen asleep in Christ have perished. I think that Judy's panel is a representation of a spiritual rebirth for her, but not in the way you may think. Much like one is reunited with their body at the end times, Judy has reunited with herself. She is renewed. The conversation surrounding abortion is a big theme in this series, and you almost cannot have a conversation debating it without showing the moral argument that's typically accompanied and backed by using a religious talking point for it. According to the pro-life stance, which one can argue uses a more religious tone in its debate, Judy has sinned in the eyes of her family, in the eyes of Nick, and most likely in her own eyes as well. She has sinned. Judy Hopps is a sinner. Now, when we take a look at this panel again, let's look at the pattern in the background. What does it resemble?
Oh, I know.
What do you think it is?
I spend a lot of time in brains. It looks like someone's synapses are firing off.
Wow. Profound answer. I would have expected broken glass to be an acceptable answer, but I think you may be even more correct. Honestly, it could be either. I think that both would hold the right meaning. If it's broken glass, then it's a visual metaphor for Judy breaking free from her past mental state, from the weaker version of herself. If it's supposed to be a synapse firing off in her brain, then it's showing us the mental changes she's had since Nick left. Either way, it's literally showing us Judy change her mind about life right in front of us. I hate to bring the topic back around to religion, because it's so nuanced and can be interpreted in so many different ways. But I mentioned just a little bit ago that this panel represents Judy's spiritual rebirth. I don't believe this is the typical spiritual rebirth, where one is turned to God, but rather a spiritual rebirth of Judy as herself. In fact, she's rejected God, it seems. Not only is this panel a visual metaphor for Judy's mental transformation from chapter 1, but it also pushes Judy further away from Nick. As evidenced in the first chapter, Nick is religious in this universe. We can see this through his feelings on Judy terminating her pregnancy and the use of religion in his language, saying, quote, "For God's sake, Judy, give this unborn child the opportunity to do the same. Let your light continue to shine through him or her," and premeditated sin. If you grew up in a church, then you'll know that these are pretty familiar phrases and pretty familiar metaphors, especially the continuation of the light. Every detail moves them further and further away from each other in chapter 2, with it being just as much in your face as it is hidden. Judy is a proven sinner, and yet in this story, she has redeemed herself without the Lord.
Too often we enjoy the comfort of opinion without the discomfort of thought.
What the fuck does that mean, brainworm?
It means Judy thought about what she needed to do to turn her life around instead of just sitting around like a little bitch and listening to everyone else.
Yeah, but where did the quote come from? You picked that up from someone else you crawled into while they were down, or what?
JFK.
Brainworm. Brainworm. Listen, dude. I know you were in my head, but you're not making any sense right now. We're not on the same wavelength here. You keep bringing up JFK, and we haven't even gotten anywhere with that yet. So I genuinely don't know what you're going on about.
It's important! Do you not see? You can't be this much of a stupid femoid!
Whoa, dude, I did not know we were gonna go that route today.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I absorbed a lot of Reddit being in your head.
And that's what you take away, misogyny. I can go get a can of Raid and finish this video now. Is that what you want? Is that what you're wanting? You wanna go like that?
No, not really. That doesn't sound nice.
So then get it together. You actually wanna help me with this? Behave and stop interrupting me.
Yeah, I can behave. I could be a good boy.
What?
Mommy?
Okay. Okay, so back to the topic at hand. Despite everything going against Judy in her life pretty much always, during her darkest time, Judy is introduced to Shay.
Jackie Kennedy!
Alright, shut up. You are starting to piss me off. I wanted to have a nice informational video about this prestigious comic, and then you pop out of my nose and decide you want to be a backseat YouTuber? I think the fuck not.
Wait, where are we going?
I am taking you downstairs so that while I talk, you have to crawl your way back up for a while.
Fuck you! You'll never figure everything out without me!
Oh, you little shit, you wanna talk to me that way? You wanna talk to me that way?
The next parts of this footage have been redacted by the Monsters Among Humanity organization in order to preserve the integrity of everyone involved. We thank you for your patience.
Stupid worm did 2 tours on RFK's head and thinks he fucking knows everything because he's an expert. Should have seen the way it talked to me when, oh. Shit. Okay, we're back. And we're back. Sorry about that. let's get back to the topic at hand. So Shay, Judy's new girlfriend. Let's talk about that. In the comic, when Nick meets Shay, his entire world stops. This is the moment where Nick realizes that he's lost all control over Judy, and he'll never have her again. It's very simple why Judy chose Shay over Nick. She was there for her when he wasn't. Shay showed Judy the respect she deserved. Judy even calls him out, saying that he came here hoping that she was single and ready to fall back into his arms. Of course, we've already categorized Nick as manipulative in this comic, but the levels of dramatic that he is willing to reach in order to try to win Judy back in a desperate plea occurs here. Nick falls to his knees, sobbing and begging Judy to come back. He even drops a slur towards Shay, blaming her for being the reason why he can't have Judy all to himself. I'm not sure if it was actually a slur, but the way he said it definitely made it feel like one. The situation escalates from here. Judy and Shay are locked in. They look at each other with love in their eyes, pure adoration. Nick is distraught by this, and he attacks Shay in her own home. Homophobia isn't cool, Nick. She didn't pick you, now move on. Being a Reddit-pilled loser isn't fun either, brainworm! Also, I see Judy has a type. She's real for that. But anyway, there's some more metaphors here we have to talk about. And some characterization of Shay I think we should address before Brainworm gets back.
I can still hear you, bitch!
Judy has a bit of a clothing change here. When we go into Judy's apartment, she's not wearing the revealing skin-tight clothes that we saw in part 1. She's covered in loose and comfortable pajamas. This is also a visual to show us how Judy has changed. In this new life that she's built with Shay, she doesn't have to be seen as an object anymore. She doesn't have to sexualize herself in order for her partner to like her. She's finally free to be a person before she's a womb. Or in this case, a sentient rabbit. Even the lighting in part 1 is different compared to part 2. Judy's apartment is shown as light and comforting in comparison. We touched on it earlier, but most notably, the background paintings have changed from a more religious and more conservative perspective to a more feminist and empowering one. For example, instead of having a bunny Jesus, there's Rosie the Riveter, or an animal that looks like Rosie the Riveter. We can see Wonder Woman on the fridge, and a painting of Frida Kahlo as well. I find it interesting that in all the panels except for one, the Frida Kahlo painting is looking away, looking straight forward. But in the panel where Nick is begging with Judy, and she's saying, "Nick, you're hurting me, let go," the portrait of Frida is side-eyeing Nick, and it snaps back to normal in the next panel. I thought that was a little funny. We also see some words on the fridge that may have some relevance when it comes to the underlying story here in general. Brainworm is right about something, but I'm not gonna let him know that. On Judy's fridge, it says, "Think about it. Think again. What do you think? Just think." John F. Kennedy once said, "We too often enjoy the comfort of opinion without the discomfort of thought." We have established Judy's character and new mindset through this quote. It can't be a coincidence, right? Judy's home is now filled with feminine empowerment. From the paintings to the women's magazine on the table, Judy has transformed herself mentally and spiritually. Shay has helped give her a new life after her abortion went wrong. Her life is now shown through bright details as opposed to Nick's life. When he talks about what happened to him after part 1, the illustrations show Nick in a dark, filthy, and trashed light. In the panels showing his one-night stand, the room is dark, dirty, and sad. There's cigarettes and beer bottles strewn about. This is our visual representation of Nick at his rock bottom, and it is a full contrast to Judy. The author has separated them as far apart as possible in part 2. They are no longer intertwined. Near the end of this comic, we see color introduced, as Judy describes Shay and the relationship that they've built together. When they kiss, the world turns to color, while Nick is sinking even lower into his greed and lust, becoming even more black and white. Judy's life is now filled with brightness and color. Let's focus on Shay for a little bit here. Shay and Judy meet when Judy is getting help after her abortion goes wrong. Shay is characterized in a very specific manner here. She's shown as slightly timid, sweet, caring.
I'm up another step, you ghoul! Wait till I get up there! I swear, I will ruin you for putting me down here!
Seems our local incel worm is struggling to get back up here. In the meanwhile, after watching Nick become so homophobic and pathetic that he physically cannot contain himself around a happy couple, let's take a look at part 3, shall we? Part 3. Never say goodbye.
The color! It's like TV!
Roll it!
Okay, boys and girls, what do you guys want?
Kiwi for me. Pineapple blueberry juice.
Mr. Wild.
Nice choice, Samson. I'll have one too.
Isn't this gonna be expensive for you, Mr. Wild?
No worries, Monica. Junior Rangers Reserve Fund will reimburse my expenses. Besides, I'm the treasurer, ain't I? Well, now that you kids know everything about this great station, I'm gonna show you a wonderful place. A place where...
What's going on?
It looks like a VIP's coming here. And I think I know who it is.
Hooray! Mayor Hobbs!
Hooray!
Dumb bunny!
What? This voice. Nicholas?
Long time no see, Carrots. Or should I say, Your Honor?
No, you don't have to. By the way, I'm glad to see you're doing well.
Oh, you mean this? It's just my irresistible fox charm. It grows over time, you know.
Oh, you.
Something wrong, Mayor Hobbs?
No, not at all. I just found a longtime friend of mine.
I see.
Oh, wow. This is what I would call a mammal wall.
There are reasons for this, Nick.
Say, is it like this all the time?
Believe me, this is just one of the downsides of becoming empowered.
Mr. Wilde?
Hey, that's not fair. Miss Mayor, if you don't mind.
Oh, sorry. Let the kids come closer, Wolverton.
Yes, ma'am.
You know Mayor Hobbs, Mr. Wilde?
Let's say she and I cracked a lot of criminal cases some time ago. 10 years to be exact.
Is it true, Mrs. Mayor?
Yes, it is, darling. Mr. Wilde and I were cops, and great buddies.
And we were also one more thing, weren't we?
Nick, please.
But this part of our history is just water under the bridge now, right?
Mr. Wilde?
Well, bygones are bygones. Carrots, let me introduce this adorable little bunch to you.
So you finally became a junior ranger scout, right?
Har har, how funny. I'm the leader of the Zootopia Pack and a successful entrepreneur. Okay, kids, introduce yourselves.
Magnificent Samson Swinton.
Great Major Barbara Bardson.
10-star General Monica Moosebridge.
Trooper Roger Raccooner.
Trooper Nicholas Pibberus Wilde Jr. Proudly at your service, ma'am.
Nicholas Wilde Jr.?
Yep, he's my pride. He's the little piece of me that I gave to this world. He always makes this face when I say that.
Oh, Nick, he's so cute and handsome.
Yeah, I know. It's called genetics, my dear.
I'm so happy for you, Nick. And your wife, too.
So, you didn't fail to notice this.
Of course, and I'm quite sure she's a very special woman.
Yes, Carrots. She is. By the way, you're still stunningly beautiful, Judy. And I would dare to say you're more beautiful now than ever.
Thank you, Nick. I'm glad you have no hard feelings.
Well, rest assured that I never had such hard feelings for you, sweetheart.
Same here. Unfortunately, not all mammals think so.
Huh? What do you mean?
I'm talking about politics, Nick. Almost all Zootopia's citizens, even those who didn't vote for me, approve and do support my full mammal equality program, the very reason why I was elected. But there are these small, radical groups that are against this integration and don't want me to be reelected. There are pro-preds and pro-praise groups, each with their own twisted agendas, but they all only have one goal: to overthrow Zootopia's democratic government and impose their prejudices and biased views.
That'll never gonna happen.
I think so. They are just a handful of delusional weirdos. Very dangerous weirdos, anyway.
So this explains your bodyguards, but Judy, wouldn't it be safer for you to stay away from public places?
Believe me, if I do so, the extremists will think they defeated me and become stronger. No, Nick. I'm not gonna bury myself in a burrow. I'd rather...
Excuse me, Your Honor, but they just arrived.
Hope I'm not slowing you down.
Not at all, Nick. Please, come with me and see why I came here today.
The place is clear, sir. Everything is ready to welcome Mayor Hop's wife and children.
Hi, Mom Judy.
Mommy Judy, I missed you.
I missed you too, my cupcake.
I was so homesick. I love you, honey.
I love you too, Pumpkin.
Mwah.
Oh, Mr. Wilde.
Hi, Shen. Mrs. Hops. I don't know if you're gonna believe me or not, but I'm deeply sorry for what I said. And what I did to you that morning, I was a major jerk, and I've done wrong. It was one of the worst things I did in my life. Well, I really, really hope you'll forgive me someday.
It's all right. All right, Nick. Just call me Shay.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shay.
Stu and Bonnie sent you many hugs.
Gosh, it's been a while since the last time I was at the Burrows. I'll pay them a visit as soon as possible.
I've seen your family on the news, but it's a pleasure to meet your kids in person.
Thanks. Let me introduce them to you. This is Rafiki. He's the captain of his school's paw ball team. Say hi to Mr. Wild, Rafiki.
Hi.
Nice to meet you, Rafiki. Say, what about becoming a junior Ranger Scout, son?
Wow, it'd be way cool, Mr. Wild. And this young lady is Mulan. Say hi, sweetie. she's a little shy.
They're so adorable.
Shay, this handsome boy is Nick's son, Nick Jr.
Oh, how cute he is. What would you like to do when you grow up, my dear? Why does she have a stutter?
I'd like to help make the world a better place.
Well, I'm sure I've heard those words before.
Oh no, really? Poor me, thinking I was being original when I taught my kid that lesson.
Yana, it's time to go.
Who needs a watch with all these watch mammals around?
I hope all these security measures are not really necessary, but better safe than sorry, right? Anyway, they're just doing their duty, like us when we were cops, remember?
Of course, Carrots. I'll never forget our time as cops.
Me neither.
Well, I think it's time to say...
Goodbye? Yes, it seems so. Goodbye, Nick. My friend.
Please, never say goodbye to me again. Judy, my friend.
Agreed. I'll never say that again. Oh, if you ever need anything from Zootopia City Hall...
Now that you said that, Junior Ranger Scouts are in need of new headquarters.
You smart fox. All right, just go to my office. We'll see what I can do for your scouts. Deal?
Deal.
Nice. See you, Nick.
Mayor Hobbs! Mayor Hobbs is a great mammal, isn't she, Dad?
Yeah, I'm sure she is, Junior. I'm sure she is. Well, boys and gals, now that everything has been said and done, well, what was I saying to you kiddos a dozen minutes ago? Oh yeah, are you ready to know a very amusing place?
Where is it, Dad?
Why, you know where, Junior. It's our amusement park, the Wild Times.
Gee Willikers, we're in color now. A strong visual change has occurred in this chapter, and we'll talk about that, but first let me just say, I'm pretty sure brainworms have infected my entire crew for this video, because looking through the notes I have here and the audio clips, apparently everybody had a moment in part 3 where they thought Nick was pregnant. It's this panel right here. So yeah, the notes say exactly, quote, brief intermission to acknowledge the impreg scare. The worms in my brain are too loud. As soon as I saw Fat Nick, my first thought was impreg somehow. Doctor recently prescribed me with touch grass. Unquote. God bless, I guess we have a lot of brain rot here, but anyway. Let's get down and dirty and talk about the last part of this comic. At the start of this video, I mentioned just a few of the things that this comic was about. And one of the things I mentioned was forgiveness. This is the part of our story where we get to see growth from both sides. Nick has seemingly changed his life for the better at some point. He's finally fulfilled his wish to become a junior Ranger Scout. But not just a scout leader and treasurer. This one little line tells us so much about the change in Nick's character. At the beginning of this comic, Nick was characterized as shifty, untrustworthy, and even downright manipulative at some points. He was known as a thief, even in the Zootopia movie. But he's grown enough to not only be trusted with money, but taking care of kids as well. Even though he is spoiling the kids probably a little bit more than he should. Okay, maybe he shouldn't be the treasurer, but he's got the spirit here. Nick is at peace with the fact that Judy is no longer a part of his life. And he's at peace with the fact that Judy is not romantically involved in his life anymore. He even has his own son, meaning at some point he found peace enough in his life to start a family of his own after the events of Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. Nick overcomes his own fear of having a meaningless and directionless life at this point. Chapter 3 begins opens from his perspective. In the comic, the presence of color represents peace and happiness within oneself. This chapter opens from Nick's perspective, meaning that he has found his joy. He is a leader for the Junior Ranger Scouts, something he didn't think he'd ever be able to do as a child due to the prejudice from his fellow members. Not only has Nick changed, but the world around him has changed. Nick's son is a representation of this changed world. Nick Jr. is a carbon copy clone of his dad. I believe Borba intentionally did this to show the progression of society in the Zootopia universe. Nick Jr. resembles his father, a fox who was thrown to the ground and muzzled for wanting to be part of the Junior Ranger Scouts, for being a predator animal. Now, his son is a part of the Scouts, and his fellow Junior Rangers resemble Nick's bullies as a child, with the majority of them being prey animals as well. From this, we can see that Nick has healed his inner child, and he's now experiencing things that he never thought would be possible for him. He's healing, he's getting better and doing better, he's changed.
Dahlia, when I get up these stairs, I'm gonna fucking kill you!
Judy, on the other hand, has done quite a bit of healing herself, it seems. Judy and Shay have adopted 2 kids, and now Judy Hopps is the mayor of Zootopia. Now, this could be a change for Judy where she's overcome her fears of children ruining her career, but I like to think of this more as a character development for her finding herself along the way. In the last 2 chapters, and in specifically chapter 2, Judy did a lot of growing mentally and emotionally. We don't know exactly how long it's been since part 2. But in one panel, Nick says that he and Judy used to crack cases 10 years ago, showing us that it's been at very least 10 years since Nick quit law enforcement. So this part is probably around the 7 to 8 years later mark, considering how old Nick's son may be. At this point in the story, Judy has been able to make peace with herself. And by having children, it shows us that she's in a much better place emotionally and maturity-wise. Based off Judy's character, which we established in part 1 of this video, she's always been very level-headed, and in part 2, she grows in emotional maturity. It makes sense that when Judy is finally able to settle down and have a much less dangerous career, that's when she decides to have kids in part 3. It's very fitting for her character to wait until she knows it's the right time to have a family. This entire part could just be a read between the lines as well to show that Nick wouldn't have been a good husband for her specifically too. Judy and Nick's relationship in part 3 is very different to the previous parts. It's very different to how it started in the series. And Borba makes a point to showcase that through language, of course. From the moment that Judy sees Nick, the world around both of them lights up with pastels and bubbles and shimmers. There's a lot of shimmers. A lot of shimmers and bubbles. And the dialogue is written in a way that almost makes it seem like Judy and Nick are still in love with each other. And in a way, they are. You guys know that meme that's like, men never get over their first love? Yeah, it's literally that. In one panel, after Nick says that their history is just water under the bridge, it shows Nick and Judy gazing at each other, while Bubbles, with happy memories of the 2 of them, dance around, only to be snapped back to reality when one of the children addresses Nick. It continues on though, even with the font changing. This is done to reflect the feelings between Nick and Judy. It's very obvious that there's still some feelings going on, but both of them are in vastly different places. Nick genuinely seems to regret his actions, but he never apologizes directly to Judy. Also, might I add that both Nick and Judy are married and have different partners by this point. I'm not saying I would crash out if I heard this conversation between the 2 of them as Shay, you know, Judy's wife, but the conversation does seem a little too intimate. Being flirty seems like a trait that Nick would have, but I feel like this is where Borba missed the mark with the characterization of these 2. I know this plays into the whole soulmates are real thought process, but I don't think that Judy's reaction would have been nearly as nice seeing him. I think she would be courteous and she would be kind, but after everything she went through and everything Shay went through with her, and all of the things Nick has said and done to the both of them for that matter, I think Judy would have kept it courteous but short. That's my biggest gripe about the writing in this. But both Nick and Judy had to separate to grow. I don't know if you guys have seen La La Land, but this feels very La La Land to me. Even though Nick and Judy do somewhat acknowledge the unhappy moments of when they were together, I don't think both understand the severity of the relationship. Nick and Judy were bad for each other. In toxic relationships, this tends to happen when you look back. We only want to remember the good parts of things, which is what Nick and Judy are doing here. They don't fully address the elephant in the room. And I'm not talking about the elephant in the background of the art here. It's not the place or the time to discuss their relationship, but I don't think things should have moved as quickly as they did. It's wonderful that they both have happy endings, and it's wonderful that they both can seem to extend forgiveness to each other. But I feel like this whole part was just done so that the reader could have a little bit of joy after being exposed to the first parts of this. The comic ends on a happy note. And it has this warm, heartfelt ending where Nick apparently owns an amusement park. Good for him. That's really fucking weird. But you know what? I'm rocking with it. I don't understand where his money came from, why he got an amusement park. That's kind of a random thing to throw in there. Am I crazy? I love theme parks. I love theme parks. That's been my hyperfixation of many years.
Come on, just a little bit more. Jesus Christ, it's hard to do this when you don't have legs. Stairs are not fucking accessible to worms. She can't do it. She can't not address it. This was supposed to be my moment. The professor will crush me if I don't succeed. I have to get back into her head.
Is this comic art? Well, unfortunately, yes. Art is supposed to evoke emotions. It's supposed to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable. And I feel like this comic series does a good job at that. There are so many layers to the storytelling that can only be done on purpose. Despite the fact that this is just simply a story about finding oneself and overcoming conflict and absolutely nothing else at all. It does seem to pull off the complexities of this debate around abortion. In a way, this is camp and satire told through a really well illustrated crack fic for some reason. Why did the author take this so seriously? Was he cackling and, rubbing his little devious hands together while drawing the close-ups of Judy's camel toe? We may never know. Did a gooner accidentally stumble upon greatness while making this comic? There's so much attention to detail here that there had to have been a specific goal in mind. Perhaps simply a monkey on a typewriter created this script from the randomness of the universe. Maybe Borba isn't even real. I have a theory that Borba is actually an animator at Disney, but I won't get into that. The detail to this comic is simply too spot on for the author not to have official character sheets. Even the details of the background are almost identical to scenes in the movie. And Nick's shirt in the second Zootopia movie matching with his shirt from the comic could be a little thought trail there for you.
No, she's gonna miss it. She's gonna miss the whole point!
Thankfully, there's no other themes or things in this comic we need to talk about.
This broad is too stupid to see it! She can't do this video without me!
Absolutely nothing at all.
First I get sent here to spy on her, and now she's ruining my moment of great intelligence! This whore! This emo whore!
Except for one thing. The Secret Part 4. Fun fact, there is a second part to part 4, but this is where it ends on Imager, so I'm gonna call this canon. The Zootopia abortion comic is a story of love, politics, sexuality, heartbreak, and forgiveness. But this is also a story of losing religion, gaining faith in yourself, and John F. Kennedy. Let's restart from the beginning.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
On May 29th, 1917, John Fitzgerald Kennedy was born into the world. And in 1961, he was indoctrinated as the 35th President of the United States. He was the first Roman Catholic president and served during one of the most important times in American history. The 1960s in America was a time of profound cultural, social, and political changes. It was a great time of optimism, and much like today, there was an intense conflict throughout the nation. The Civil Rights Movement, moment, the Vietnam War, and the assassination of a president. During Kennedy's presidency, there was segregation of black and white Americans, and this segregation was a fire that fueled prejudice. The story of Zootopia does not shy away from the fact that it is about racial prejudice. It doesn't shy away from the fact that it is about a bias in a community, with prey animals being the allegory for white people, and predator animals being the allegory for people of color, which historically should be flipped, because white people have done some pretty fucked up stuff to pretty much every race out there. But the allegory for people of color being predators in Zootopia plays off the racist mindset idea that people who aren't white are predators to white people. JFK was considered progressive for his time, much like Judy in Zootopia. In part 1 of the Zootopia abortion comic, Nick and Judy are dealing with the feelings and the reality of an abortion. It's ugly, and it's nasty. Judy and Nick are not married in this comic, but they still had sexual relations outside of marriage. John F. Kennedy had several alleged mistresses, all while being married to Jackie Kennedy. And on June 25th of 2025, an article was posted by Page 6, detailing the story of a woman named Joan Lundberg. She was one of the women that JFK had an affair with. The story comes from JFK, Public-Private Secret, written by J. Randy Taraborelli, and it's a book that dives into the former president's public and private life. According to the book, JFK pressured this woman into having an abortion. This is where the parallels between JFK and Judy Hopps begin. Judy is pressured by Nick to keep it. The themes of dealing with an emotional and stressful event like an abortion are present. The tension is high, and the emotional struggles of either side are shown. But the parallel gets deeper when we see that Judy and Kennedy's reasoning for the abortion are the same, their career. In part 2, we are introduced to the character of Shay, which at the time we couldn't see, but she is the Jackie Kennedy to Judy's JFK. In part 3 of the comic, Nick almost feels like Judy's affair. There's details of Judy's life that play into this JFK narrative, which we can see in part 2. From the words on her fridge resembling famous Kennedy quotes, to her being raised Catholic or Catholic, like JFK. Part 3 and part 4 of the comic are the most in-your-face with it, though. Judy F. Kennedy is facing an extremist right-wing group that resembles the Nazis and the Third KKK. The KKK especially would have been active at the time of JFK's presidency, the same people who would have opposed JFK's presidency. Kennedy was progressive for the time, much like Judy with her mammal equality program. Judy is a progressive in this universe. If you really want to get into it, she's a queer politician in an interracial queer marriage. She's literally in a gay relationship. Yeah, they made the Zootopia abortion comic woke. Deal with it. But Shay resembles Jackie Kennedy right down to the demeanor. And in part 3, she even wears the pink tweed Chanel suit that Jackie Kennedy watched her husband die in. The one thing I can't figure out about Shay's parallel to Jackie Kennedy is her stutter. I can't find any evidence of Jacqueline Kennedy having one. The one thing I can find, though, is that she has this kind of uppity, regal accent that made people think that she was posh, for lack of a better term. I don't know much about accents, but she did have a very interesting accent. It sounds like money. Even the artwork, in a way, resembles JFK's presidency historically. The change of black and white to color. Not only is this a representation of the changes made within the characters, but during the 1960s, color TV was starting to become mainstream. Even though the technology was accessible earlier, it wasn't until there was an improved affordability, more color, broadcasts, and higher quality TVs that it started becoming popular amongst American households. This entire story is inspired by JFK, and the use of Zootopia is the perfect way to execute it.
You bitch!
Brainworm, you made it back finally. I just finished the video.
You took my ideas! I could have helped you and made it better! It won't be as good without me! You're not smart enough to figure everything out!
Oh, you rude little worm. I didn't need your help.
Yes, you did! You even said it! Besides, I was in your head! I know you couldn't have done this without me!
But I did. And it's over now. So why don't we find you a new host to live in? How's that sound?
You fool! I know you'll never make it in this industry! You cater to these stupid humans! They'll never accept a ghoul as one of them! Even the professor knows it!
The professor? Professor Shelley? How do you know who that is?
That's not your concern!
Brainworm? Why did you crawl into my head? You could have picked anyone, and yet you chose the one person whose brains are constantly rotting. Why did you crawl into my head? It wasn't to help me with anything, was it?
You spend too much time worrying about these silly humans, Dahlia. I was sent to check in and make sure you weren't lost is all.
Lost?
You don't get it, do you? You're really that dumb, huh?
Oh, I get it, brainworm. I get it. I get that you are a pest. I tried to choose kindness, but you've shown me you're nothing more than an annoying little brainworm.
Oh.
Interrupting my video. Going into my head without consent. Lashing out at me when you don't get your way. I'm not going anywhere. And I'm not listening to you. And I sure as hell
One of the most important things about BoJack Horseman is its realistic and visceral depiction of mental health. And here's how it succeeded in this area. Perhaps the most realistic aspect of this portrayal is how it shows that recovery isn't a constantly linear process of improvement. You're never done taking care of your mental health, just like your physical health. You need to exercise, eat right to keep healthy all the time. And it's the same for your emotional state. It sounds daunting, but really it's just a part of living and taking care of yourself. You do it one day at a time. It's why many therapists focus on teaching you techniques to mitigate your depression or anxiety when it reaches a fever pitch. Nothing will cure you, even if you begin taking prescribed medication. It's about adapting and learning how to healthily cope with your illness. Life is unpredictable, including your journey with recovery. You're never going to be able to control everything. You can only control yourself, and these techniques that we're taught can help you do so. And medication can help as well. On more than one occasion, the seasons of BoJack Horseman ends with BoJack in a more positive place, seemingly realizing what he needs to be happy and fulfilled, when that is never really a thing. It's a finale of a season, a happy moment. But as BoJack says,
You can't have happy endings in sitcoms, not really, because if everyone's happy, the show would be over. And above all else, the show has to keep going. There's always more show. And you can call horsing around dumb or bad or unrealistic, but there's nothing more realistic than that.
There is no finale that is going to bring you to a plateau where your life is perfect for the rest of time. Yes, there are uplifting times, but acting like that is the end-all be-all is what causes an inevitable slide back down, because you are going to have to keep living. There is no happy ending. After season 2, he resolves to put in the effort to better himself after receiving the advice from the baboon runner about committing to it every day, and that being the hard part. But season 3 doesn't really show that much effort on that behalf. He still drinks heavily, he's still rather abrasive. We can see that he tries harder with Todd, but there's not much in the way of effort on his part to show the people around him that he cares, especially after how far he sunk in season 2. And then later in season 3, he eventually pushes every single positive influence away in his life, except for Mr. Peanut Butter, because it's not really possible to push that guy away. He fires Princess Carolyn even after her plea for help. He's overtly cruel to Diane to differentiate himself from her and avoid his issues further. He sleeps with Emily for no reason. It's really a dark time for him after one of the most positive moments in the show as a whole. It goes to great lengths to show that wanting to change isn't really enough. You have to take action. You have to admit to yourself exactly the mistakes that you have made and the consequences that have resulted from them. Instead, BoJack sinks deeper and deeper into his addictions, his alcoholism, his need for attention through the Oscar campaign, excessive sex regardless of the consequences like with Emily. It's very much one of his worst seasons and has some of the largest implications on his relationships throughout the course of the show. It's honestly heartbreaking in the season 3 premiere to watch BoJack turn his back on everything he promised he'd do at the end of season 2 and then sink further into this vapid Hollywood culture, Hollywood, which would only fuel these addictions further. But perhaps the biggest and most obvious example of this is the transition from season 4 of this show to season 5. But it also happens to be one of my favorite severe tone changes of all time. In What Time Is It Right Now, the finale leaves BoJack in an extremely positive place.
BoJack, look, I never needed you to be a dad. I'm going to be fine. I told you from the beginning I have 8 dads.
Yeah. Good.
But I've never had a brother.
Although his time with Hollyhock was tainted, he was able to eventually provide his mother a gesture of kindness, even after she destroyed the one relationship that mattered to him, and then apologize and secure a relationship with someone who could be a genuinely positive influence on his life. It's also one of the first times BoJack extends kindness without expecting things in return, showing actual signs of change, both with Princess Carolyn's request for him to join Filbert and for delivering Henrietta's phone number to Hollyhock. It's 2 gestures of true generosity that shows a side of BoJack we haven't ever seen before. Over the course of season 4, we see BoJack really change in character. Not completely, of course, because he slides back down, but he does learn gradually how to open up to Hollyhock and let her past those thick walls he puts up around himself to protect his heart. Although, again, not completely. He still can't say he loves her at the end of season 4, but he has come a long way from the person that we left at the end of season 3, because like I said before, that was a disaster. My favorite moment during this development is when Hollyhock comforts him after he truly realizes how far his mother's dementia has progressed.
She's never gonna know just how much I hate her.
I'm sure she knew, BoJack.
Yeah, but I really wanted to say it to her face.
Well, hey, she's here now, right? And she has good days and bad days. Maybe eventually she'll recognize you. And then you can totally rip into her.
You really think so?
Mm-hmm.
Not the comforting you'd expect, but still. And he almost puts his hand on her shoulder. He naturally wants to open himself up to love, but is so afraid of getting hurt that he catches himself and forces his emotions back down. And this might come out of left field, but I also think that this stems from toxic masculinity that we see in his father. Not allowing yourself to feel things that would make you womanly or weak. Although BoJack hates his mother and father, there are some definite lessons instilled into him from his childhood, especially when you have a father who goes on long, misogynistic rants without any ability to interrupt or get away from the conversation.
Pearls are for ladies.
Like, I would have had to jump out of the car. Honestly, though, if he was going on that rant, I would have strongly considered it. And we can see this development from season 4 shown in his behavior in season 5, where he truly does want to change, at least for the first part, and make some efforts to limit his bad habits. But he won't admit the core issues, even when those habits begin to slide back. In the premiere, we see he drinks a set amount from a vodka bottle each day, and while yes, it is nice to see him limit himself and exhibit some self-control, the fact that he waits until midnight and then immediately downs it isn't great either. He's not addressing the root of the problem, his believing that he needs this to cope at all, and that him requiring it to go through his day is in itself a problem. Dr. Champ later voices the same train of thought as he regresses back into old habits as well, saying that never drinking again is ridiculous when you can just use in moderation while he's incredibly drunk. He is disproving his own point here. He's not admitting that he struggles too heavily with using in moderation to be able to safely drink casually, and that is part of admitting that you actually have that problem. And we can see that, of course, this method doesn't work for Bojack, as when Hollyhock reappears in his house later that season, she finds that he has 1 bottle for every day of the week.
Oh, that's just my new system I'm trying. I'm down to 1 bottle a day.
That is not only a far cry from where he started, but he also states that he is down to 1 bottle a week when we know he has been increasing in quantity. It shows that he's still lying to everyone around him, and probably even to himself. You can't cast away a problem simply by limiting yourself. You need to admit that there is a problem in the first place. And I appreciate this show for depicting positive change in the season before and showing some progress, but still not going all the way and showing the problems with this type of method.
I'm working out a system so I only drink a little each day. This is my cheat day.
And while yes, he is admitting that he drinks too much with these techniques, he's not admitting to himself that he has a dependence on alcohol that will eventually grow out of control if he feeds it even a little bit, which we see happens in this season. It's the same with his growing addiction to painkillers as well. When Hollyhock shows up and expresses concern that he's addicted to these drugs, he states that he isn't doing drugs. It's okay because it's prescribed medicine. I think it's really important to show these different forms of rationalization and present how casually these major issues can be dismissed in conversation even with those that genuinely care about you. And how even though Bojack might understand that he has an addictive personality, he still struggles with addiction and to fully admit that he has a core problem. And even when he does admit that he doesn't need the pills, he injures himself again to be able to keep taking them, while keeping up that perception that he is stable to those who would question him and possibly put a stop to his supply. More on this later. This cycle of behavior continues until he spirals far enough downward to harm someone else close to him in a major way, which is able to jostle him back to reality a little bit. And I also think it's extremely real to not actually realize that there is a devastating problem going on until things reach a fever pitch and it is so obvious that you can no longer lie to yourself. This is the catalyst for him actually admitting that he has a problem and going to rehab. Diane puts it best in the final scene when he starts to leave out of fear.
You want to go home?
Is that okay?
Look, you have 2 options. You can go back home and try to do things your way like you've been doing all your life, or you can see what these guys have to offer.
See, I don't want people thinking that I don't believe people are able to drink in moderation. I am just saying that Bojack has specifically tried to, quote, fix things on his own over and over again, even in the short period of time that we are with him, ignoring the fact that he fails every single time to make any significant progress. And that him admitting that he needs help fixing this issue is what allows him to actually effectively deal with it. I hope I'm not getting the wrong message across. But even after rehab, Bojack ends up sliding back into old behaviors. It happens when Hollyhock presumably distances herself from him. A lot of people blame Hollyhock for Bojack relapsing, but like I said above, part of recovery is learning to accept responsibility and the fact that you can't control everything. People might leave, even after you've resolved to do better and have made significant efforts in that endeavor. Does it mean that the effort wasn't worth it because they left? Or that it has no value? Hell, No! There were quite a few people who commented on my Hollyhock was justified video, saying that if she is valid for leaving, there's no point for Bojack to recover, which is, wow. First of all, way to put all of the pressure and responsibility for Bojack's recovery on one person. It's not only a little cruel, but it also outsources liability from yourself and helps you avoid holding yourself accountable in any way. You can't blame people for distancing themselves after learning the specifics of your old mistakes, and if you truly understood the ramifications of those actions and accepted the consequences, you wouldn't. Second of all, you shouldn't be doing this for other people in the first place. You should be wanting to be better for yourself, for your own health and success. If you are changing for someone, you are basically setting yourself up for failure. Because like I said, you can't control other people. But Bojack ultimately could not handle this loss of Hollyhock and turned back to what was more familiar as a coping mechanism. And this time, it went further than it ever has before, almost leading to his death. Thank God it did not, even though a lot of people wanted it to. Once again, they show Bojack moving through the realization of what he's done to himself, actually face direct legal consequences, and begin the recovery process over entirely again with renewed purpose. It's honestly inspiring in the finale to see him still on track, even if he is in prison. It's important to show that you can always try again, even if you failed to an extreme degree, as Bojack does during season 6. And it doesn't pretend that Bojack will be okay forever either. It's very upfront about that in the finale. He's unsure if he'll make it outside of prison. Prison, as he says, is easy, but Todd gives him extremely reassuring advice in this area. If he relapses again, he can get sober again. It's all about turning yourself around. And that's not saying you shouldn't put in any effort to remain sober. It's just saying that if you eventually do relapse, it's not the end of the world. You can turn yourself around again. The next thing this show teaches us about mental health is that having or lacking mental health doesn't make someone a good or bad person, nor does it make them evil.
I'm a bad guy, and the world needs to know.
There's no such thing as bad guys or good guys. We're all just guys who do good stuff sometimes and bad stuff sometimes, and all we can do is try to do less bad stuff and more good stuff. But you're never going to be good because you're not bad. So you need to stop using that as an excuse.
Bojack thinks that he's an overtly terrible person, whether that be from the influence of his parents, his addiction, his past actions, what have you. But he sees himself as evil or as a bad guy. But Diane is pretty adamant about the fact that the world doesn't really contain bad guys and good guys. It's not that simple or black and white. I mean, evidenced by the fact that the person giving him this advice was having sex with a married man semi-recently. Doesn't mean it's not good advice. It just means that everybody is a person and does awful things and good things sometimes. Pretending that it is that simple is what drives a lot of this negative behavior. By telling yourself over and over that you're fundamentally terrible, you're subconsciously saying to yourself that there's no possibility for positive change in your life. You're a terrible person at your core, and it is something that can't be fixed, when this is definitely not true. While yes, your actions speak about you as a person, they do not define everything that you are or everything that you could be. Just because you've done terrible things in your past doesn't mean you're incapable of great good in the future. Just as people who have only done good are capable of great evil. Don't limit yourself with this ideology and actually put in the effort. You might surprise yourself with the progress you make. Honestly, it's pretty much just an excuse. Change isn't easy, and it is extremely daunting. In the face of that challenge, a lot of people simply try to instinctively avoid it, and saying that you're only one thing is a hell of a lot easier. By the way, I'm not trying to criticize anyone. I am guilty of many of these things too. I have also felt the insurmountable wall of change and have provided excuses in the face of it to avoid doing it. It happens. It's something that we all do. But admitting it to yourself, while not easy, is one of the most important parts of the recovery process. She also tells Bojack that rehab isn't a cure-all. Working on your addiction, going on antidepressants, it can all help, but it's not necessarily what's going to fix you, especially your behavior. If you have a habit of treating people like shit, that is something you are also going to have to work to break and change. There are plenty of mentally healthy people who do awful things or are just flat out dicks. It's not what defines us as people. It can affect our behavior to the point where we can do more negative things or more good things, or how we process events and define ourselves, but it does not make us into an evil person. Nor does the person who emerges from rehab automatically become a good person just because they've admitted that they've done wrong. They're just a person who's trying to do better. We are all just people who are trying to do better. And all we can do is that. Just try. Another important aspect of mental health on this show is showing that you need to admit and face mistakes to be able to move on at all. There is no erasing the past, and you can never run from who you are or what you've done. The fact is, who you are is what you've done. This is one of the most important messages to take for someone who is trying to better themselves. Yes, your lack of mental health doesn't make you evil, but you can't avoid what you've done either. If you've made grievous mistakes or committed crimes and hurt the people closest to you, you need to be able to admit that to yourself and keep a realistic perspective of the damage you've done to your own life and the lives of those around you. Diane directly tells Bojack that no one is going to hold him accountable anyway. He keeps fictionalizing his situation as if he has no control over it, waiting for somebody else to come in and solve it all for him, like he's been praying Diane herself would do for so long, practically since he met her. In his realization with Dr. Champ, he asserts this as well, as he looks to the world to punish him, but because he's famous, he almost is never actually punished. And honestly, I don't think this is just a famous person thing. I think looking for other people to punish you is a bad way to go about recovery. You have to admit these things and accept the responsibility yourself. Part of that is accepting the consequences as well. No one's going to hold your hand through this either. I think Diane's approach to getting Bojack into rehab at the end of season 5 is probably the perfect tone to take. She's not overly sensitive or overtly cruel, but she's very matter of fact. This is what you've done, this is how you've avoided it, and this is how you can truly prove that you want to do better in the future. No one is going to force you to fix yourself, hold you down and tell you you have to do this. You have to want to, and to commit all on your own. And you wouldn't want people to do that either. If the only reason you're trying to get better is because someone else told you to, you're not going to put in as serious an effort as you need to. After all, you didn't even admit there was a problem yourself, so why would you need to do anything to fix it? People can help, absolutely can support you and lift you up, but you cannot look to them to solve all your problems or to absolutely tell you exactly what you've done wrong and what you need to do to fix it. Just as moving on does not mean forgetting about what you've done, it's about resolving to do better in the face of the same circumstances. You're moving on from that type of behavior, not changing into a completely different human being. Part of this comes from that mindset that I mentioned earlier, where people see themselves as wholly good or bad. So when they actually do improve, they feel that they've completely changed their entire identity, when those negative acts from their past are still a part of reality. None of this absolves you of the consequences just because you're a different person. Bojack shows this in Sunk Cost and all that, where he feels that because he has changed and put in a great amount of effort to improve himself, he shouldn't be held accountable or face consequences for things that he had done before he started to improve.
No, they can't get me on old shit. I'm a different person now.
He's a different person now, and he didn't do those things. But Todd is really the one who questions this idea, saying that, first of all, he really isn't a different person, especially with how he's reacting during this conversation. Even if he has changed, though, he's simply being reported for things that he has actually done. Like Todd says, the fact of the matter is, that story that he tells about New Mexico is super sketchy. You did those things. Like I said before, if you truly understand and grasp the impact of what you've done, then you know that you can't really ever escape the consequences. And you can't blame people for bringing it to light, especially considering that people you hurt are simply trying to tell their story. The real difference between the first and second interview is that while, yes, Biscuits does does go softer on him the first time, he wasn't willing to see the value in her points the second time and instead took to mainly defending himself. She painted a pretty obvious pattern and provided strict examples for why she came to this conclusion about him having power over women and repeatedly abusing it, which she was absolutely correct about. But he states that he barely has power over himself, denying the point entirely instead of actually considering the truth of it and trying to learn from it. I did take solace, however, along with Diane, when they show a small part of the interview we didn't see at the end of this episode, Xerox of a Xerox, where he admits that the person who committed those acts is the same man as he is now.
I keep hearing you say, that's not me, I've changed. But how can we believe you've stopped this pattern of behavior if you won't acknowledge this pattern exists?
I don't even know what pattern you're talking about.
I'll try one more time. Over these last 2 nights, you've drawn us an outline of a person who doesn't think about others, a person who puts his own needs first. And over, other people get hurt. This person I'm describing, is it a different person? Or is it you?
Oh.
Yeah, it's me.
That is how I knew that BoJack was actually sincere in his efforts this season and recognized, albeit not fully yet, the pain he caused the people around him. And I really appreciate BoJack not exactly going back and blaming Biscuits or Penny, especially Penny, for his cancellation in Hollywood's mainstream media. Yes, in the moment he is very upset with Biscuits, but later on, he never goes back to attack her. He understands that his life is falling apart because of the results of his own actions, not theirs. Another important aspect is that your mental health is not a part of your personality or who you are, and it definitely does not define you as a person. It is an illness like any other. This is most obviously exemplified in Good Damage in Season 6, where Diane feels the reason she struggles to access her damage is because of the medication that has been helping ease her depression. We also see in Face of Depression that she considers this to be the, quote, real Diane when she confesses to BoJack that she believes Guy will eventually tire of her and leave her.
We're probably gonna break up soon anyway. There's only so long before he gets tired of the real me.
The real you being...
Ta-da!
You know, someone got really mad at me recently.
Mad at you?
I know, shocking. And he said, BoJack, you ruin everything. That's what you are.
Oof.
And it actually took him saying it out loud for me to realize how stupid that is, even though I believed it for so long. I bought into this idea that I was the thing that couldn't be changed.
Like BoJack for most of the series, she believes that this constant awful feeling in the pit of her stomach, this nagging voice telling her she's terrible in the back of her head, is something that is just classic Diane, something she will never grow out of, and something that is just a part of her personality and who she is as a person. She attributes her being able to access her own damage to her actually needing to be depressed, when in reality, she just doesn't want to write this tragic book of essays. She's forcing herself to because she thinks she needs to. She has this false perception of herself as this extremely damaged person that needs to continually be damaged to make everything she's gone through mean something. Even if you are mentally improving, you don't need to go exactly back to the negative place you were in to be able to understand what you were feeling. There are plenty of people who are in a much better place than a lot of the characters in these shows are, but still identify with the issues. And this is evidenced by the fact that when she does actually go off of her meds and try to write, she's still not able to get anything done at all. She can't access the damage here either. She just invites all that self-hate that was previously there. And instead, when she does take her prescribed medication, she's able to write something genuinely fun and colorful, as well as being able to relate it to her own experiences as a child to uplift those who are going through the same hardships that she went through. And she is able to access that damage without internalizing any of the hatred that was inflicted on her through the negative experiences in her childhood. And we see through Guy's son, Sonny, that this does actually have that effect as well, even on those she didn't intend to connect with, because she not only decided to share her experiences, but she did so in a way that fueled her creativity and provided her some happiness, rather than the existential dread that her book of essays did. There's a reason why Ivy Tran Food Court Detective is so successful as a literary work, despite the fact that Diane sees it as initially ludicrous. It's because she enjoys writing it. She actually has fun. She doesn't put pressure on herself to feel miserable just so she can create this peace that she believes is required of her. And BoJack relates to this. He saw himself as someone who couldn't be changed, someone who just was terrible and would always hurt people around him. But that idea itself is stupid. And I'm not being flip here. He literally says that it is stupid, and I agree. It is the ultimate excuse that people tell themselves so that they don't have to do any sort of work whatsoever or admit anything they've done. What can they do? Like I touched on before, some people believe that this is their nature and they can't change it. Sometimes due to failed attempts in the past or simply because of the severity of their mistakes. And I have felt this. Even as I'm talking about all of these things, I still struggle to admit my own shortcomings. It's something we all struggle to do. But because the show touches on that so realistically and in depth, we are able to more easily recognize those patterns in ourselves and get the help we need ahead of time. Because this idea is bullshit. You can always change for the better, especially if you recognize what you're actually doing wrong. That is, as everyone says, the first step, and it's not a lie. You know, I see a lot of comments on my videos of people comparing themselves to BoJack, telling everyone how hopeless they feel, how they think they can never change, but by the end of the series, we saw BoJack put actual effort into changing and began to repair some of his relationships. It is possible. That is the message of this show. While it is never linear, while it is never easy, it is always possible. Please don't ever think that you are stuck as the person you are now. If you don't like something about yourself, you can work to change it. And it starts by getting some help, therapy, a friend you can trust, someone you can talk to about your emotions, who can provide an alternate perspective, and at least recenter you and your perception of yourself so you don't spiral off and think of yourself as an evil person who can't ever be changed. As BoJack says,
The main thing I think about is how stupid I am that I didn't do this sooner. I wasted so many years being miserable because I assumed that was the only way to be. I don't want to do that anymore.
it keeps you in this state of almost self-harm where you internalize this as a part of you, or sometimes in BoJack's case, you feel that you deserve to feel terrible. Diane goes through this as well when she takes herself off of her medication. It's part of that negative self-talk. BoJack doesn't realize how ridiculous it all sounds until he hears it from someone else outside of his own brain, which, by the way, is an extremely realistic way to portray how these realizations occur. There's so much self-hate in our own brains that just speeds by on a daily basis, making it seem like it's completely normal. But then, if somebody said that to you out loud, it would seem like the most out-of-pocket, rude thing you could possibly think of. It's fascinating to me. And I, of course, had this feeling as well. I thought for a long time that my mental illness was just a part of my personality. Oh yeah, I love checking the locks on doors exactly 10 times before I go to sleep at night because I'm just a meticulous person. No, okay, I didn't want to admit that I actually had OCD and needed to go to a therapist, talk about my issues, and eventually go on medication, which I am on now and has been helping me for years. It's really important to address these things, and that's why I'm, one, making this video, and two, so enamored by BoJack Horseman because it is such a beautifully accurate depiction about what it is like inside your own head when you are going through these issues and how to both not deal with and effectively deal with these issues yourself. One other thing that BoJack really succeeds at in the area of mental health is never, ever glamorizing it or portraying it as something that is desirable to have, which many shows that depict mental illness often make the mistake of doing. It's why I think episodes like Escape from LA are wholly crucial to this show's message, because they depict that very ugly side of mental illness, how it can drive you to such lows where you do the most reprehensible things, the most creepy and sketchy things, all for the sake of easing your own pain in the worst way possible. And besides these wrong and obviously disgusting things that BoJack may do, there's also the fact that whenever he goes on a bender, it's always shown as very destructive and never a fun activity. I know it may seem simple, but it is definitely important to depict. People are hurt, even killed, during these acts, and they go a long way to show just how vehemently awful These are for not only your life, but the lives of those around you. And speaking how it can affect those around you, it also shows how taking care of other people who may be struggling with their mental health is not your responsibility.
Diana, you are not responsible for the dysfunction of others. I actually explore this in my book. Are you responsible for the dysfunction of others? Spoiler alert, you're not.
Especially with Diane in season 6. Before she leaves, she specifically feels that she needs